and you know, graduated, went our separate ways. And one morning, about 10 years later, I opened up the LA Times and see a comic strip with his name on it. It was the first day, and I thought, he did it. That was his goal, and he achieved it. I think it's the same guy, because Greg Evans is a fairly, you know, popular name. So I called the Greg Evans I knew to make sure that Luann was actually his comic strip, and it was. So we've been friends since college, is what I'm trying to say. So we go way back, way back. Yeah, yeah, I'm the guy, remember? Yeah, playwriting. I knew it would come back if I brought that up again. So we're really happy to be here, and we're going to start with a PowerPoint presentation from Greg, and then we'll have a little interview, and you'll have a chance to ask some questions, and maybe by the time you leave here, you'll be the only people in the world with some information about Luann that Greg might reveal today. I don't know. Let's find out.
Probably not.
Probably not? Well, we'll see. We'll see how far we go. Maybe we'll run out of time before that happens.
Thank you, Fred. Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to get right into my little slide presentation so that there's plenty of time at the end for you to ruthlessly grill me about why I sent Quill home to Australia. So I just have a little 10, 15-minute little thing here that I think you're going to enjoy. Hopefully this is all going to work. No, I think the lights are okay, right? We're good, yeah. What? Keep the mic in front of my mouth. Is that how these work? Okay, okay. Is that good? Can you hear me that good? Okay. But now I can't see the screen. I grew up in Burbank, California. This is me on the left at age about 6. And that's my dad and mom and my older brother. You can see me in this little white suit. It's because my mom was a frustrated showgirl. She always wanted to go into showbiz, and so she lived vicariously through me by trying to get me into various showbiz endeavors. My brother there looks like he could be my dad. He's only 6 years older than I am, but as you can see, he was very athletic, very big. He was a school quarterback, and he was the out front, aggressive guy. And then there's me drawing cartoons in my bedroom. I lived a few blocks from Disney Studio, and I would ride my bike over there all the time and sit out in front of the gate and hope that I would be the youngest animator ever hired by Walt. And, but meanwhile, I was practicing and honing my skills to the point where I figured they would hire me. This is my Mickey Mouse. Quality work, if you ask me. I was also prepared for the more illustrative aspect of cartooning. I wanted to show that I could do the serious illustration work as well, so I did this sort of thing. This was on some stationery my dad used to bring home. It was this funny yellow colored stuff and it had Alpha Laboratories. I have no idea what that is. But these are all dating from the, I don't know, the 50s, I guess. I would have been, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old, something like that. I wanted to practice my animation skills, and because I was fascinated with the idea of making drawings move. So I started honing my animation skills to the point where I was doing Pinocchio quality animation, and I'll demonstrate this here for you now. Huh? Isn't that great? I got married at an early age. Now this is my mom again, getting me into showbiz. I took tap lessons, I took piano lessons, and this was a little community theater show, and I played the groom in my white suit. Here I am being a cowboy on the right. But all along, I really wanted to just be a cartoonist, and I sit in my bedroom hours on end drawing cartoons. My parents took Saturday Evening Post, and I thought that the cartoonists in there did it for fun. But then I realized that they actually got paid to draw these cartoons. So I decided to start trying to draw cartoons and sending them off. This is one I think I submitted to Saturday Evening Post. You can see I folded it and stuck it in a number 10 envelope to mail them off my submissions. Here's one I sent, I think, to Argosy magazine. Where the hell is the cigarette lighter? I thought I was being really edgy to use the word lighter. Then I read an article somewhere that the cartoons in Playboy magazine were getting $250 for a little black and white cartoon. So at age 11, I went in my bedroom and started drawing cartoons for Playboy. I didn't have a lot of background experience that would produce good cartoons, so here's what I came up with. This was my best effort. I think all the grass I drew is worth $250, and the nice signature. But I know why they rejected this. Can you see why? Yes, I didn't spell plumbing correctly. I got married the second time. This is high school prom. I still wasn't having any luck in cartooning by the time I was in high school, and I figured I was a failure then. I really wanted to be a cartoonist. I didn't know how to do this. I went off to major in art in college. This is where I met Fred. And trying to come up with different ideas for different comic strips. And then I read an article about this guy, and he seemed to have a lot of promise. This was a new strip that had recently started, and I was very impressed with the simplicity, but the sophistication that was going on here, and the multiple layers. It wasn't just for kids, it wasn't just for adults. There was a lot going on here, and that really appealed to me. I liked the idea of being able to tell stories and develop characters more than just doing one-off gags for magazines. So I started developing ideas for comic strips. This was my first one. Gee, I sure am glad I'm right-handed. Why? Because I can't do anything with my left hand. My whole idea was here, I was lazy. I realized drawing a daily comic strip is going to be a lot of work, so I wanted to keep it simple. So a couple of talking heads, you know, the skinny guy and the fat guy, a la Laurel and Hardy, saying funny, witty things every day. Well, how many of these do you think I was able to come up with? About 14, and then I was all out of ideas, so I'm glad the syndicate didn't pick up this one. Here's one, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. This I called Founding Fathers, and it was based on, you know, an early Americana kind of a theme. And here he is. Well, here's the new corral captain. How do you like it? But there's no gate. How do you plan to get the horse in? You forget the horse knows how to jump. I thought, actually, that's a pretty good gag. I should use that in Luann if I had a horse and a gate and a corral. Then I did a strip about two goofy clowns in the circus. And now, hold it. This time I'll read the intro and you dive. Go on. And now Jojo the Clown will dive into this vat of hot, naked girls. Come down here. Again, I thought I was being really bold using the word come. But, you know, I was showing these to my wife, and she pointed out, look at that second panel, that looks like Luann. She's got the lumpy hair and the little round nose and little round eyes. And she's right. I was kind of drawing these same characters over and over. You know, cartoonists never throw anything away. You just recycle your good characters on, and you'll see how this comes up. Here's a character that kind of looks like Mr. Fogarty, who became the grumpy school teacher in Luann, and this was about a used car salesman. Sir, here's a used car that will really save gas. Are you kidding? That's a V8, but only 3 of the pistons work. Now again, you know, here I was trying to fill a niche. You know, I'd look at the comics and go, I don't see anything here about a used car salesman. You know, stuff I don't know. I know nothing about used car sales or clowns in the circus. You know, so I was creating from my head rather than from my heart. Again, inner city life, I know nothing about that, but I went ahead right. It didn't stop me from doing a strip called Simi Heights about these various characters that live in a big city. So here's the guy about to jump. Excuse me, are you going to jump? Yeah, why? Because my car is parked directly below you. It is? Which one is it? It's the blue MG. Oh yeah, I see it. Why don't you just move down a little, then you'll hit that blue VW. What do you take me for, lady? Some kind of nut? That's my car. I used to write funny stuff. I don't know what happened. And again, there's Luann, a few pounds over, but I seem to have a knack for writing more for females than for males. I've always liked women more than men, and I find women are way more interesting. I always say that women men, I forget what I always say. I don't say it enough. Men are like oranges, you know, there's a thick skin and then underneath it's just a big sloppy mess. And women are like onions, there's a million little thin layers and you're crying all the time. So I did this strip about two female roommates, one sort of saucy and one kind of conservative. And this was, you can see the school counselor in Luann in the last panel there, Margot. Hey Margot, bring me another beer, will you? You're just lucky I've had 3 of these, or otherwise I'd feel like coming in there and telling you off. Again, beer, and I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I was being really edgy and forward-thinking with all this kind of stuff. But this was the first strip that was actually held by a syndicate. Lee Salem, way back then, held this for almost, I think, a year or longer, and then asked for a second batch, and I sent a second batch, and then finally they returned them all with a nice rejection letter and coffee stain rings all over them. But I thought, I seem to be able to write for women better than for men. Wish I knew what the next picture was. At home this came up with 2 pictures, and on here it doesn't work. Anyway, at some point, I got married for the 3rd time. No, actually for the 1st time. And it was the smartest thing I ever did because we had children, and one of them was a daughter who became the inspiration for Luann. Here's my wife here, and here's my daughter here. That's Betty and Karen. Oh, well, I thought that would be the next picture, but it isn't. Anyway, and then I did a mail order strip for several years. I produced this strip called Fogarty about a grumpy school teacher because I was a school teacher for a few years. I hated it. And I sold this strip through the mail to high school and junior high newspapers. And they would buy, you know, a dozen or so. They don't publish daily. And I would send them off and they would send me a check. And I made a few dollars doing that for several years, actually. Oh, and then for several years I ran this robot around. We had moved to Australia, we taught down there, we came home, couldn't find teaching jobs. My wife and I moved to Colorado Springs, and I worked at a TV station doing graphic arts, and at one point they bought this promotional robot to be like a spokesbot for the station. And I ran the robot for them, and I really enjoyed it. And it's a sort of a radio-controlled robot. So I would stand in the crowd with a controller and a little microphone, and the robot would make, you know, comments and run around, play music, and tip his hat and stuff like that. And I thought, you know, there's a job here, there's a profession in this. So we decided to buy a robot, $7,000, and moved back to California, ended up in San Diego. And for several years, for about 8 or 10 years, this is what I did for a living. I rented out Maxwell the robot. I worked at Seaport Village, I worked at the zoo, I did conventions, traveled all over the place doing these trade shows and parties and so forth with this robot. But all the while, I was still sending off comic strips and trying to get them going. So then I got married for the 3rd time. Anyway. So here's my daughter, Karen. I think a few of you, I said, this will be where the blood, yes, this will be where the bloodshed begins because my daughter's going to kill me when she sees that I'm showing this picture of her. But here she is at about age, what? 5 or 6, yeah. And she was at that age where, well, she did this. You know, what can I say? And I thought, you know what, here's my comic strip, this saucy little girl. I should do a strip about this. I like writing for females. I've got the material right here. This will be great. So I started drawing a strip about a saucy little girl who would dress up in her mom's high heels and prance around. And you know, I realize now, if I'd only given her an imaginary tiger. So anyway, this cute little girl turned into this. Sorry, Karen. This was one of the first concept sketches for Luann. Why I did the bumpy hair and the things I did back then, I have no idea. Why I put the freckles out on her hair, I have no idea. But there she is. But for the first time in writing in my career of trying to develop comic strips, and the ones I showed you are only a small sample, I probably sent off a dozen different comic strips or panel ideas to the syndicates over the years. They were all rejected. I never sold anything. I never sold the Playboy magazine. And I kept hoping that Hugh Hefner would come up in his limo with the bunnies and give me my check for $250. Never happened. But this one, the writing came naturally. I was finally writing from my heart instead of from my head. And that made all the difference. So for any of you who are aspiring comic strip people, realize this is about writing, not drawing. It's about coming from your heart and not your head. It's about having not ideas, but motivation. It's about feeling something that just comes out endlessly for 365 days for, now it's been 27 years. And it's still coming. No thanks to my daughter now. She rudely grew out of her teen years and got way past all this, so I have to make it up on my own. But fortunately, it all came. So the strip debuted in March of 1985, back when we were all much younger and Luann was still goofy looking. Here's the very first strip that appeared on, what was that, March 18th? Why can't I have all my problems when I'm 18 and know everything? It debuted in about 73 newspapers around the country. The LA Times was one of them. They ran it for a few years and then dropped it. That's why you don't see it in the LA Times anymore. By the way, don't try this at home, this leaning over the head thing. I was trying to be like my hero, Charles Schultz, who has all these great templates, doesn't he? You know, the kite-eating tree and the kicking the football and the Lucy in the psychiatrist booth, all these great things to hang gags on. And I tried to do that too. This was one of them, the sitting in the bedroom and Luann leaning over like that. This is the only one I was ever able to come up with. It is incredibly hard to come up with those clever, you know, gimmicks. But look at this. This was from Sparky, Charles Schultz. One day in the mail, I got an envelope, I opened it up, pulled this out, and it was from Charles Schultz. Out of the blue, there it was. And it's just, Mom, how did you and Dad meet? Well, he sat behind me in social studies, and oh my God, really? Mother Erin Hill sits behind me in social studies. Can you believe it? I mean, this is like fate or something. I can't wait to call Bernice and tell her. Anyway, he said hi and I said hi. It's just the kind of sentimental thing that Sparky loved. So this is one of my, you know, obviously one of my prized possessions. I haven't had luck all the time though. I wrote to Bill Watterson wanting to see if he'd like to trade originals. Dear Greg, thanks for the nice letter. Here's your book. Oh, I sent him a book to sign, so he did do that. But for the time being, I'm hanging on to all my originals, even though I appreciate your offer. Best of luck with Luann. Sincerely, Bill Watterson. Nice, but Okay, geeky stuff about stuff. So for all of you who don't care about this, you can take a nap. This is just a little behind-the-scenes stuff about the process that I use. Here's a picture of some antique relics. These are things I used for the first 23 years or so that I did Luann, the various pens and markers and things that I used. The third one down is my Frankenstein brush. It's kind of a cobbled together brush system that I could put a cap on. And then at the bottom you'll see a pair of tweezers, and you're thinking, what are they doing there? Well, I found that using the markers at the bottom, you get that round point, but I like the wedgy point, so I'd squish the tip with the tweezers, and then you get a little edge to the thing. But now this is my setup. I have a Cintiq made by Wacom and hooked up to my laptop, and I do everything digitally now, the lettering, the box, everything. I have no original anymore at the end of the day, so if you want yesterday's Luann original, sorry, I don't have it. I can print one out, and they give you a print, but I don't have the originals. So I lay out this is a Sunday where I lay out the boxes, and I use a program called AppleWorks. It's actually an old program from Apple, but it works beautifully for creating this template for the thing, because I can actually click and drag these various gutter things where I want them and space them around. See, Fred's already bored. He's like,
It's being dry. And
it is.
sentiment.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then I type in the lettering. It's my own hand lettering that I had a company put to disk, and then you load it in the font menu. It comes up, and you can spell check and bold it, and it's the greatest thing. And then I draw and I gray down with a pencil and draw in a gray, and then ink over. So here's a close-up of that. Oh, I'm left-handed. I didn't know that. And then I drop in the colors. I color every Sunday. I don't color the dailies. Someone colors the dailies for me that you see on the internet. And then there's the finished thing. What does it say? It's official, summer's over. Now begins the long, gloomy decline into the cold darkness of winter. And that's why it's called fall. Okay. You would think, with high-paid editors at my syndicate, that no mistakes would ever slip through. You would be wrong. My wife Betty has read many of these before they go out, but not regularly. I look them over before I send them out. The syndicate editors look at them over. The newspaper editors, when they get the stuff, I think maybe might look at it now and then, probably not. But these are mistakes I didn't know occurred until they were in the paper and people wrote to me to point them out to me. So we'll see if you can find them. Get my handy dandy laser pointer because I might have to point. Yeah, there's a mistake there. The A shouldn't be. Okay. What's wrong with this picture?
He signs wrong.
Yeah, no, it's he's wearing the Mercedes-Benz logo. What's wrong with this one? This is tough. Yeah. How many Beatles were there? Were there 5? What is that? I know, I'm a huge Beatle fan, right? And what was that? This is my homage to Stuart Sutcliffe? Or
When Pete Best was still in the group.
Yeah, it's Pete Best, yeah.
That one day when
That one day when they were all 5 together. Thank you, Fred. That's what it is. It's not a mistake after all. Who?
Murray the K.
Oh, Murray the K. Yeah. Or George Martin, they say he was, but I don't think he ever put on the Beatle wig. What's wrong with this one? Oops! Yeah, he shaved quickly between. This is so easy to do. You know, you're drawing, you've got a deadline, you're trying to get stuff out, and you just forget some little detail. Now look at this one. This is this silly story where I had Bernice and Luann kidnap, Delta and Luann kidnap Bernice, and they put her in the back of the car. She's all strapped up, and then all of a sudden she's gesturing, and why doesn't she take the bag off her head? Where was I that day? I took the writing off of this one because it would distract from the most important thing. Yeah, this is a sequence I did about coming to Comic-Con, and Luann dresses as a pad of paper, and Bernice is dressed as a pen. But somehow, when you just, you know, drop it off down here, but then you get those readers who write to me and say, draw more of Luann like that.
My, what big eyes you have.
This is hard to figure out, and I got so screwed up in drawing this, but if you kind of follow the sequence, he's right, and then he's wrong, and then it's all wrong. The thing pops open. I mean, when he pulls in, it should be on this side, on the opposite side of where he is, right? And that's where it is. So what's the problem here? But honestly, could you get this right if you were doing this? No, you could not. What's wrong here? She's driving on the wrong side of the road. Yeah. And Dad doesn't notice that minor detail. He's just all into nice, good left turn, Luann. But I'm not the only one who makes mistakes. Look at this. Is Calvin ambidextrous? I didn't know. This isn't, by the way, from one Calvin strip. This is 2 different strips separated by time, but still. You know, everybody says Watterson was so great. I'm your subconscious. So, isn't that a word, subconscious? Well, apparently not. How stupid are you? There's no such word as subconscious. There's the noun conscience, an inner feeling, and there is the adjective subconscious, a part of the mind of which one is not fully aware. Go back to school, Mr. Thompson. Wow. Excuse me, Mr. Thompson. Didn't you ever have a special man in your life, Mrs. Horner? Oh, several, dear. I have one now, but none special enough to marry. What? This is subtle. A huge limo just pulled up and it's got the Playboy Bunny logo on it. Yeah, Dad got invited to Hugh Hefner's mansion for New Year's. Don't wait up. I may hop on Huff's jet and party on in Paris. What's wrong with that? Paris is, yeah, exactly. Paris has already happened if we're in the US. He should party on in Honolulu, but not Paris. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know this.
Maybe they're going to celebrate January 1st.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Yeah, this was a silly story how Luann reads the wrong chapters, because on the board it said chapter 5 and 6 through 9, and she thinks it says chapters 6 through 9, so she doesn't read chapter 5. But why didn't the teacher just write 5 through 9? Why 5, 6 through 9? It makes no sense. Try to be clever. This is a math problem, so I'll just kind of tell you. If you add up the 3 and the 4 and the 1 and the 1 and another 1, it actually adds up to 10 and not 12. He says, here are the 12 auction winners, but when you add it up, it's not 12. So when I did this, I was counting on my fingers and my toes, but this slipped through, and it was a reader who picked that up. And see, you thought this was an easy job.
You really need to know math.
Yeah. My math skills are awful. This one is not a mistake per se, so I just want to share. Here's a Sunday strip I did some time ago. I'm sick of this messy room. I want to clean now. Okay, sheesh. I guess I'm not perfect until my room is tidy. I mean, could I be a more worthless, awful person? And the mom imagines the scenarios and then gives her a hug. Okay, that's kind of sweet. And I got this one. Today's message was absolutely perfect. I'm going to laminate it and give it a place of honor on my refrigerator. I love this strip. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Here is one former teen mother who will never read your comic strip again. In fact, I will be writing to all surrounding newspapers to express my disgust at your generalization of teen parents and to ask them to remove it. Way to go, Mr. Evans. You've made an already marginalized group feel worthless. Okay. And just to show I'm still making mistakes, this is just from not that long ago. What's wrong here? Yeah. She bites her right hand, and then she's holding and cradling her left hand. Yeah. Okay, shameless promotion, as long as you're all here and I have a captive audience. Most of you have already been down, but I'm at the National Cartoonist Society, booth 1307, and I have books there for sale. If you'd like a Luann book, I'm drawing and sketching for you. Come and say hi and buy a book. That would be great. And then I wrote a Luann musical a few years ago, and I've written a new one called Wrinkles, about getting older. A topic I know nothing about. I had to do a lot of research to find out what it's all about. But it's going to be at the Welk Theater up in Escondido. So if you're around in this area in August, I'd love you to come up and see it. It's a show I'm producing. The Welk isn't producing it. I'm bringing the show in and spending all the money, so I'm trying to get a lot of butts in the seats. So bring your butts and hundreds of your best friends' butts and come and see the show. And Q&A.
Q&A. Let's cue the Q&A. We'll have time we'll do a few questions up here and then we'll open it up to you. So if you have some questions, think about them and we'll see what the answers are. First though, let's talk for a few minutes. We really didn't rehearse this, which will probably be obvious. Not on Greg's part. So Luann's been going now for 27 years. If a TV series was going for 27 years, one of the problems they would have is, what do we do that we haven't done already? So how much do you consider, I've got 27 years of story I've already told, what's left to tell?
Sex and nudity, religion, politics, those are all good topics for me. Haven't discussed. You know, you would think after going to the well for 27 years, the well would be going dry, but it isn't. It isn't. It gets deeper, it gets broader, because the characters have grown and developed, and the nuances and the relationships provide so much material that, you know, from day to day I may have a hard time thinking exactly where I'm going next, but I know I have stories that I need to tell and wrap up and develop for a good time going forward. I wish I knew what day I was going to die, because then I could wrap the strip up nice and neat. You know, my big fear is I'm going to suddenly get hit by a bus and I won't be able to finish telling the story. You know, is Aaron Hill going to ever come back and, you know, resolve these things? Because I have plans for all this stuff. But we'll see. Hopefully I'll live another 15 or 20 years. I feel pretty good right now.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. But that bus thing,
yeah,
but that won't happen. Do you have, aside from Luann, you have a very large cast of characters. Do you have some that are either your favorites or lend themselves more to telling stories than others?
Yeah, the nicer a character is, the more difficult they are to write for. They tend to be boring. I have a hard time with Delta, the black character, because it's difficult to give a minority character negative characteristics. And you really need negative characteristics to create conflict and humor. That's why in boy-girl stories, and I've done a lot of them, the getting there is the fun part. Once you get there, end of story. Where do you go from there? It's always difficult. Happily ever after, ho-hum. That's just boring. You need conflict. You need something to go on, or you don't really have humor and you don't really have a story. So that's difficult. And then there are some characters I brought in who I thought could pan out in a big way, who really didn't go anywhere. Well, I guess Quill would be one, and for reasons we can talk about. But and Luann is hard, frankly, because she's a very neutral character. She's the one that all the wackos revolve around. You know, she's kind of like Mary Tyler Moore and all the people around her. So those characters are always hard to write for. And the best ones are the evil ones. You know, Dirk was great, and Eiffel is great, Tiffany is great, because they're so unlikable in their likable kind of way. You know what I mean? So, was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the answer.
Oh,
yeah, but it was to the question, so that
all right.
Okay. Also, looking at, you know, the big picture of 27 years of Luann, you can, again, like most series that go on and on, you can only change your characters so much. If you don't change them, they just stay the same, so they do have to grow. But if you change them too much, they're not your characters anymore. Like J.R. Ewing is still on TV now, but he's still evil old J.R. Ewing. Do you face that problem with your cast of characters, and when you do make changes, how do you decide, you know, who am I going to change and how far can I go in letting them grow up?
Yeah, you know, you start these things and you never think 27 years down the road, where are you going to be? Okay. My original intent was Luann would be a 13-year-old forever. The strip was sold as a teen girl strip. But after a while, I realized I've kind of burned through all the 13-year-old girl stuff. And so about, 10 years into the strip, I had her have a birthday and turn 16. And she's been 16, technically, since then. However, I believe most people think of her as being more of a senior in high school or something like that. And to be perfectly frank, and I'll tell you here, this is something I've been thinking a lot about recently and seriously considering. Where should Luann be going in the near future? Is this her last year in high school? Will she be going off to college? You know, the thing I don't want to do is have her grow. I've said this before, if she keeps aging, she'll turn into Kathy. And we've already done Kathy. So I want to be very careful, and I always have to ask myself, what am I gaining if I age the characters? What am I gaining by doing that? Am I losing more than I'm gaining by doing that? At the same time, I don't really want them to tread water forever. I like the idea of exploring where they're going next. And I think a lot of the newer people who are reading the strip online these days assume the strip is more like For Better or For Worse, where the characters are sort of aging in real time. Well, obviously they're not aging in real time, but I believe they should probably begin aging. Okay.
Well, there's a revelation that probably the rest of the world doesn't know yet, so that's interesting. Right?
Yeah, good.
All right.
Whatever I just said, you know it first.
Well, we can open it up because no, it's all right. But I did promise the first question to Marcy. Marcy, are you ready for your question? Okay.
This is the one I don't want to hear. Go ahead, Marcy.
In a loud voice so everyone can hear it. We'll repeat it if we have to.
Yeah, the question is, why send Quill home now when poor Luann was just starting to have a relationship and that you were devastated by that? First of all, thank you for being devastated because that means a lot. That means that you really care about these characters and they're more than just, pen marks on a piece of paper. You know, the trouble that you have, a lot of people say, oh, we want the romance, let's get going, let's get the juicy stuff going. Well, obviously I can't do in a comic strip what real teenagers at that age would probably be doing if they were alone in the bedroom. I can't go there. I really can't go there. So that leaves me with a couple of options. They can tread water forever, just kissing each other forever and holding hands and going on dates and ho-hum. Or they have to break up and they have to part in some way. I will tell you this, however, we haven't seen the last of Quill. Now this is interesting because a few months ago I was seeing comments like, oh, here we go with Quill and Luann again, what a boring couple, this is going nowhere, get back to Brad and Tony, get back to TJ and Eiffel at Weenie World. As soon as I get rid of Quill, it's, what did you do? He was the best character.
Well, actually, before you get to your question, that leads me to ask, do you read the fan comments? Because now that you're, Luann's online every day, in addition to being all the papers, so you get, starting, if it goes up at midnight, by 12:05, you've got a lot of comments. I know you don't stay up that late, but do you read the fan comments? And if so, what impact do they have on you?
Well, Luann has sort of enjoyed a whole new life on the internet at Go Comics because these comments appear. I don't know how many of you see those or participate in them, but no, I don't read them. Although I just admitted that I do, but here's what it is. I'll look at the first few, and the way they have it set up, whoever gets in there at midnight 01 second gets the first posting, and it stays there. It seems to me it should go the other way, so you can read the latest one first, but if you want to read them all, you're scrolling and adding more comments and down to the bottom. I never do that. It's just too much, and it's too depressing, frankly, because there are so many negative people, and this is what the internet's become, a place for people to browse safely from their dark hovel somewhere. And I'm sorry if you're one of those. I didn't mean to.
I don't think there's anyone like that.
No. Well, a few of them live in a hovel, I think I can see that. So no, I don't. But when I do see something that is intelligent and well thought out, or I'll get an email from somebody, and I get a lot of email, it can have an influence on how you think about the characters. And so I can't say that they have no impact on me whatsoever, because sometimes they do.
TJ, in some ways to me, seems like Kramer from Seinfeld, because he has this mysterious source of income, and we have absolutely no idea what it is. Are we ever going to get any further clues into his background? How sometimes he seems to be able to come up with this incredible sums of money.
Yeah, the question is about TJ and this mysterious source of income. He seems to... Well, I think at one point I did mention that his mother and father, his father had apparently made a lot of money somehow and left him a large, what do you call it, a trust, an endowment of some kind. So we assume TJ is tapping into that.
Any other questions? Yes, over here.
Could you talk about your thoughts about when you change Brad from just a jerk into a more rounded character?
You mean in his personality or in his shape? Yeah, he's less rounded actually.
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's a character who has really taken some interesting turns in his life, and it surprised me. I never thought Brad would ever change from being just a doofus brother. He was a great source of gag material between Luann and him, because there you have that conflict I was talking about. But when 9/11 happened, I realized I had to do something. Like, didn't you all feel you wanted to somehow do something? And that's what I thought of. I thought, you know what, Brad would want to become a firefighter. And it just went on from there. I had no idea he was going to meet Tony Daytona. I had no idea of any of that stuff. In fact, you know, people ask me, do you plot all this stuff out ahead of time? Do you plan? Do you know where you're going? You'd think I would, wouldn't you? But I don't. And the writers, the characters sort of tell me where they're going to go. It sounds weird, but that's how it works. And some of you who are writers probably know how this works. Once you create a character and their personality and the parameters of their nature, they start to speak to you and tell you where the story is going to go. So I'm not writing any of this stuff. My characters are. Yeah.
Have you ever had this whisper story or puppet?
Do my characters whisper a story to me and I argue back that I don't want to do that?
Yeah, I want to go this way or
Yeah, well, I didn't literally mean my characters right. Yeah. 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 And it's, I mean, it's really all still me, but yeah, sometimes oh, TJ is gonna fall and break his neck, and then you know, and then I go, no, that's not gonna happen. Sorry, TJ, you're not gonna break your neck, and like that, you know.
Yes, in the back, and then, you know, we'll come up front.
The musical that you did in the band seems like, where was the inspiration? What made you want to make a musical?
The specific inspiration for Luann?
Well, no, the musical.
Oh, the musical.
Yeah.
Oh, the musical. Make you want to do a musical? Yeah, when I was little, you know, my mom, the showbiz thing, were you here earlier when I showed that whole thing? She played show tunes, and she had all these albums from all these Broadway shows she'd play all the time. I took tap lessons and piano lessons. Turned out, I'm not a performer. I do better behind the scenes. I can perform behind a screen, but, you know, like the Wizard of Oz, but don't look at the guy behind the curtain. I don't want to be up on the stage. So I loved, The Music Man was the first musical I ever heard, and I thought, God, listen, this is so great. They're telling stories, they're singing these great songs, there's humor. I mean, this is like the ultimate entertainment. And I love music, always have. And so several years back, somebody we know at the university where I live said, have you ever thought of doing a Luann musical? And I thought, well, I've written a few little tunes in the past. I'm not a composer, but I kind of remember how to play the piano from my piano lessons, and so I dunked out a few little tunes and used GarageBand on my Mac to help me layer tracks and stuff, and wrote some songs, and I had, you know, plenty of years of material and gags and jokes to draw on. So this Luann musical just happened very quickly and got produced, and now it's with Samuel French, and you can bring it to your own town and have it done in your town. So yeah, that's how that happened. I always have to hire an orchestrator to write the band parts, because I don't know how to write for a trumpet and a piano.
Yes.
You mentioned, what's her name, the Black Desert.
Delta.
She and Bernice, are they ever going to have a life? They both, their function seems to be to react
Yeah.
to, so just be backup singers. For the
I think Bernice and Delta are going to fall in love.
That was the next question.
Yeah, they should have some kind of life, but I haven't figured that out yet.
Wasn't there a soldier involved? One of them had a
Yes. Was there a soldier involved? It was Bernice's brother, Ben was his name. And she didn't know she had an older brother. It turned out that her parents had had a child long ago and gave him up for adoption, and then Ben showed up years later. And it was a compelling storyline. Should I tell the whole story or not now here? We have 5 minutes? Well, when my wife and I first met, right away she got pregnant. How that happened, I don't know. Neither one of us were really ready to start a family or settle down or quit school. We were just young kids. So we adopted a little girl out, and end of story, we didn't think we'd ever see this little girl again. She went off to Texas. About 30 years later, wasn't it? 28 years later, I start getting a series of emails from this girl who has a 13-year-old son who's a very talented cartoonist, and he wants to go into cartooning, and she wants to know, what school did I go to, and she's asking me these questions, and I answer them. And then finally, she sends an email, and she says, I think I'm your daughter. And it turns out she was. It was our daughter Rhonda, years later, had found me through the comic strip Luann. She saw, oh, Greg Evans, that's the name of my dad, because she had the papers, she knew her parents' name. And so she thought, well, Greg Evans, she went on the website, she got some information, and she needed to fill in a few blanks. That was why she sent me those emails. So we connected, and we've been close ever since, and yeah, so there you go. It was a wonderful story. And now she has, it turns out she's grown, she's an adult, she's married, and she has 3 grandkids. We have how old is Jonathan now? Yeah, we have a 26-year-old grandson. That's amazing. Yeah. And he's engaged now, so I'll be a great-grandfather in no time. But that was sort of the motivation for the story about Ben. And then I had Ben came into the strip, and I thought he would be a love interest for Luann, because how interesting would that be? There's one of those things. It just didn't seem to go anywhere. Ben never spoke to me. Ben wouldn't talk to me. I got nothing out of Ben. So now Ben is off doing some vague Red Cross thing or something like that, never to be spoken of again. That's what happens.
Yes.
I was wondering, whenever you bought the comic book, how much input does your family have on the idea of writing?
Yeah, how much input does my family have on the writing these days? Not so much, really. The characters have sort of evolved past just being about my own family and my own daughter in so many ways, so I make it all up myself. My wife is real good at seeing the big picture. She's the forest person, I'm the tree person. I'm looking for gags, and she sees the big picture, so that's really handy. And then recently, my daughter has expressed a real interest in maybe writing for the strip, which makes so much sense. I mean, she's Luann, right? And she's a great writer. She's very smart, she's very funny, she's very witty, and I think he just held up the stop sign, so I just stopped.
I think you finished the sentence, right?
So anyway, I think this is where some of the new material may be coming from years down the road, just for my daughter. So that makes a complete circle. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.